Welcome to today's episode of the What Moves Her podcast. We are in year 6 of What Moves Her, season 4 of our podcast, and we have a beautiful new studio. We are moving on up here. We're really excited. I'm sitting with my co-host, Yannaccone, and we are welcoming a very special guest today. She's the winner of the 2026 Move by Her Power Award. And if you were able to read her nominations, you would be moved to tears. This woman is powerful, she's fierce, she's smart, she's empathetic. She has all the qualities of exactly the type of woman that we wanted to win this award. Please welcome to our show, Coldwell Banker Commercial's Hannah Kamba. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hey there.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Great. How are you?
So happy to have you in person. We had the annual What Moves Her award celebration at our Compass International headquarters here in Madison, New Jersey. We were able to not only meet Hannah, but also a very special guest, which was her mother. We really, really enjoyed our time with you.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you so much for having me and my mom. It meant so much to us both. It was so fun.
It was awesome. So let's get into the content. Winning the Move by Her Power Award. I mean, you win a lot of awards, let's be honest. I follow you on Instagram. You are racking up the accolades, the recognition, all very well deserved, of course. But what was it like for you to receive the call from Sue that you were this year's award winner?
I was really shocked. I mean, I've been in the commercial real estate industry for about 12 years now. And, it's taken time for me to really build up my success. I think I kind of started in an untraditional path. I started on the staffing side as the executive assistant for 7 years. And I've been in full-time brokerage for about 5. So to get that call from Sue, I think I was a little bit taken back. And, I guess I didn't, really know the gravity of what I was winning. And at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, this is a huge accomplishment for not only me, but for my family, my entire office. I think I'm one of the only women brokers in Coldwell Banker to really be, recognized like this. This company's been around for 35 years. So, it meant a lot.
Yeah, it was so much fun to call you and share the news with you of what you'd earned. And it's always a pleasure for me to get to do that. It's so exciting. But, you just touched on it. And I do want to take a minute to talk a little bit about being a woman in commercial real estate, right? And so I don't know how many people know this, like that's where I started. I was a licensed agent and started my career in this industry in commercial real estate. And I was one of the only women at one point in one of my offices. And it's a little bit reverse from sort of traditional residential real estate as we think about it. And it can be intimidating. So talk a little bit about that, your strength, your drive, your grit, and your commitment to the commercial side of the business.
Right. You both met my mother, and she's been in the real estate world for a long time. And, I got a lot of my grit from her, thankfully. She's a top producing agent in my firm. She's, top 2% of Coldwell Banker Commercial. So, she's amazing. And I've learned from the best of the best, right? And I started off on the staffing side as the executive assistant, which I felt like, gave me a little bit of a lead up in the commercial space, right? I was involved in very difficult negotiations very early on in my career. I was, surrounded by a lot of big decision makers in Charleston and was able to really network with those individuals and really understand complex, leases and sales and contracts at a very early stage of my career. So that really helped me with, my confidence. But learning commercial real estate, like, Sue, is like learning a different language. I mean, it's very complex. And, when you first get started, you're kind of like, I don't, maybe you don't really understand all the, the terminology. I'm still learning every single day. I mean, there's so much to learn in commercial real estate. And, I think just building up that confidence, right, of deal structures and really kind of understanding lease language. And, I've really, tried to know and be really diligent on, the terms of the lease and do a lot of my homework, to kind of put me ahead of everybody else.
Okay, so Hannah, obviously we noticed the closeness instantly when we were having lunch with you, when you walked into the building. Your mom has walked a path before you as a successful woman in real estate. I have to imagine that as a child, but also as now a professional in the same space, that there are many lessons that you learned throughout the journey from her that you still hold close to your heart that guides you in this profession. What are some of those guiding principles that you picked up from your mom along the way that you still feel yourself practicing and maybe are even instilling to others around you who are trying to walk the same path?
Sure, sure. So yeah, we are incredibly close. My mom is my absolute best friend. Not only do we work together, but we are best friends in real life. And she's a wonderful grandmother to my two kids. We call her Kiki.
Kiki.
And
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, Kiki. I know. So, I think from a very young age, I was, watching her. She actually worked for Coldwell Banker Commercial in Malibu, California, doing residential real estate, and slowly kind of transitioned into commercial real estate in the downtown Los Angeles arts district, and worked with an investment group out of there. But from a very young age, I think I saw, how much she was just a very hardworking individual. She was a hardworking mom, with us as kids, and she was just hardworking in her career path. And, she kind of instilled at me at a very young age that, I should also be hardworking. So I had a job when I was 13 years old, working at the little gym in my neighborhood, cleaning the mats and working in the little childcare area, and then from there I was always doing little, babysitting jobs. And then I started hosting at age 15. And I always had a little job while I was in school, and even in college, I was working every weekend during the spring and summer months for weddings. And I worked with some of the top, wedding event planners in Charleston. So, she always was instilling on me just that hard work ethic. And that's really carried on into, my life now as an adult. I'm still super hardworking. I think anyone here at the office would say, "Oh yeah, Hannah, she works her butt off." And I do. And I, every single second that I'm here in my office is super valuable to me because I have two little babies at home, as you guys know. So every second counts, right? And I can't really waste any time on any of, the BS that goes on in commercial real estate, right? So I don't have time.
That is a great, real answer.
That was, yes,
love that.
fantastic. Yeah. I love the best friends with your mom in real life too. I think that's so, I think as a mother, I have a 13, well, she's 15 now, and I'm laughing as I hear the similarities too of, hopefully what she's taking from me a little bit, which is, she had her first job at 14 and she won like most hardworking or something in school. So I just keep thinking like, okay, something's working, right? Like you keep, because you want to pass on the good things and the hard work, and we do see all of our kids, boys or girls or whatever, like the hard work that parents put into this. But you did mention a little something. I'm going to jump a little bit because your very real answer, you do spend a lot of time in the community as well. And so you do have a lot you're balancing between this amazing career, being a mom, being a partner, so you want to share a little bit about some of the work you do in the community, which was also part of the path to achieving the What Moves Her award this year.
Sure, sure. So, as you both know, I focus on retail and particularly in the restaurant sector. So I work a lot with different restaurant groups. And, it's been really motivating for me to help other women-owned businesses. I think I saw a lack of that kind of support in our market, and I really wanted to accentuate that. I really thought that, when I first got started out in commercial real estate, as you know, it's a very male-dominated industry. And, I kind of saw what it was like for me just to get started. I was, on staff for 7 years. I probably could have been on staff for another 7. It was comfy. It was, it was easy. And, but I ended up making the big decision to switch over. And, I was so thankful for that. And, I wanted to give the other women in my industry, especially in the restaurant, sector, or even just in any retail sector, the opportunity of realizing this is your potential, this is how far you could get, and just supporting those businesses along the way has been really amazing to watch. I am on Camp Happy Days Developers Council, so I've joined the charity Camp Happy Days, which is so amazing. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it helps children with cancer, so their families who are affected by their child who has cancer. It gives financial support to them. That's been a huge motivating factor for me. I introduced my restaurant clients to them to see if there's anything that they could do to help. But I think I mentioned to you, Sue, that when I was pregnant with my second child, I was worried that there might be some complications with my pregnancy. And thankfully, I was, spared of any serious illness. And, I really wanted to find a charity that I can be involved with that, I could help, right? I was spared, but there's a lot of families that aren't. And so that was such a huge, thing for me. And it's been so great for me and the people that I work with. And, I have a group that's a Mexican grocery store, and they have on their little POS system to help, round up. And there's other, opportunities to help those charities. And it's been just, such a great group to be a part of. I'm really proud of, to be a part of the Developers Council for it too.
Hannah, I think the thing that impresses me most about you is that you embody and personify all the best parts of what we think about as a trusted advisor in real estate. And not only are you performing on just a track record of excellence in commercial real estate, but the way that you give back to your community, both in building up businesses and the economy and all of the opportunities for women, would be impressive enough. But to build on a philanthropic layer on top of that, you are the trifecta of all good that an agent could be in their community. And I just think it was so easy to choose you from so many women that threw their hat in just based on that. It's such a special thing. It's such a authentic piece of you. And it just truly is something that we were so thrilled to celebrate. So I'm happy that people can learn from you and to be inspired by you, because really that was what Sue sought out to do, is to give women like you a megaphone, not only to celebrate you, but to help others be inspired to understand the strength that they have within, and to move forward in a way that's so impactful to the people around them. So it's just hearing your story again. We heard it in obviously the nomination process in person in New Jersey, but hearing it again, you truly are the whole package. And it's really incredible.
Thank you.
So let's talk about helping women break into a place. Obviously, commercial real estate, we talked a little bit about being a male-dominated space. Restaurant business also sometimes can be tough for women to break into. What are some barriers, whether they're in our own minds, we talk a lot about imposter syndrome and things like that, or real barriers that you often help women getting off the ground navigate through? What's the advice that you're giving them, saying, hey, I've been there, I've walked that path, here are some of the ways that I've broken through those barriers, whether they're self-inflicted or actually things that I'm coming across in the industry?
Right. So, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So, the good old boys club really exists here. This is an old Southern town, and there's a lot of old school landlords here. And, it's my job as a woman broker to help support these, businesses and women-owned businesses to help them navigate that. And, you're dealing with very difficult personalities. You're dealing with big personalities, some egos, right? So, I really, my biggest goal for them is to help them feel educated. First and foremost, like I mentioned, commercial real estate is really tough. It can be very confusing at times. So giving them, just a base layer of understanding their leases, right? Giving them the power of, really, fine tuning what they want. Because that's the end all goal, right? That I want them to be successful. I want them to know what they want and to drive towards that success and be, the best that they can be. And if they have a landlord that's difficult and that belittles them or, undermines their intelligence because maybe they just don't quite understand the legal language or the deal, structures, that can be really intimidating for a lot of people. So, it's my goal, whether it's women owned or not, is to give them, a baseline, understanding their lease, make them feel confident in their decisions, and giving them all the options, because there's a lot of times where those options aren't really, projected, right? So they don't even know that those options exist. Or, I've had so many people come to me and they're like, oh, well, if I would have known, they maybe another tenant, another restaurant group that I was talking to, they were like, oh, well, if I would have known that is, how you got that deal at that price and how they structured that deal, like I would have done that deal. I'm like, well, then you should have called me.
Yeah.
But it just takes time, and I've been in this industry for a good amount of time where I've built these relationships with other landlords. I think that they can now respect me, and other brokers know that when they're dealing with me, I'm going to get the deal done. And I ask the tough questions that maybe most aren't really comfortable with asking fairly early on in negotiations. And I'm there to support them, right? I want to make sure that they feel confident and powerful in their decisions, and their most important goal is to be a successful business owner, which I'm all about. I want to see this town be the best that they can be, and I want to help fill it with, amazing restaurants, amazing retail spaces.
I think that's incredible. And what you touched on is that a lot of times the intimidation and the lack of confidence comes from really a lack of knowledge or understanding. And, all people aren't knowledgeable in all things. And that's why, back to the trusted advisor point, the role that you play in any real estate sales professional plays really is being that trusted advisor, because people don't do this every day. And you can be an amazing restaurateur, but that doesn't mean you understand the complex nuances of commercial financing and leases and all the things. And so I love that. What is, as you think through that and that knowledge, and that sort of knowledge is power, which I firmly believe, which is why we're always learning and looking to develop more and learn things we don't know. It makes me think of also like advice, right? And you're giving advice to your clients, you're giving advice to others in the community, et cetera. Is there any advice that you lean on from your mother as you from growing up or early days, or any sound piece of advice that you may just hearken back to for yourself that you can think of sharing with the audience?
Sure. So my mother is full of great advice. But she's always been a big advocate of putting out what you want into the universe. So I tell that to all my clients. I'm like, you know what? You want to be the best Filipino restaurant in Charleston? Say it to the universe, say it loud, say it proud, and you will get there. If you keep, saying it to everybody, you will, because you have to embody of what you're saying. And so, I take that to heart with everything that I do. I want to be, the best retail broker. I've had some tremendous mentors in my life, not just my mother, but Brent Case is our broker in charge here. I've, been blessed to work with Tim Rowley, who's, he worked for luxury real estate for Kiowa for years. So he was the VP of real estate in Kiowa, which is, the highest end real estate that you can really have here in Charleston, if not the Low Country in general. So he did all of their retail leasing at Freshfields in Kiowa. If you're familiar with that area, it's where the PGA Tour happened. So I've had, two, incredible, mentors here in Charleston, my mom being one of them, obviously, but put it out in the universe. Surround yourself with people that you can learn from, and to not be afraid to ask questions that maybe sound dumb to you, but they're not. You have to know, how to answer these questions intelligently. And another big thing that I always advocate for people, and my mom definitely advocates for, is really reading through your leases. Really understanding. There's so many brokers in this town that I know that it probably don't read their leases. And I'm diligent on reading every single paragraph. I want to understand completely. I'm not a real estate attorney, and I always have an amazing real estate attorney that I like to, use, and that helps me a lot and guides me. But, first and foremost have to understand your tenant, right? Or your client. And then, being diligent on your, the paperwork behind it, and really understanding that.
It's amazing how many, we've probably done close to 50 podcasts at this point, and the ability to be vulnerable and to be intelligent enough to ask questions has been a thread through so many of these episodes. It really has. It's come up many times as a theme. After our merger with Compass, Compass International Holdings handed to all of us 8 entrepreneurial principles that we've been following, and there's a lot of really good ones. I like all of them. I think there's 8 of them. Some of them are collaborate without ego, which you completely do, bounce back with passion. One of the ones that I know Robert talks a lot about is dream big. So I would love to close things, Hannah, with dreaming big. If you had a dream big moment for women in commercial real estate in the next 5 to 10 years, what is your dream big vision for this part of the industry?
Right. So, I was thinking about, my daughter when she's older, right? I hope that she looks at, my career and just, in general, right, when she's older and, maybe my age and thinking, wow, there wasn't, maybe an opportunity, even for my mom back then in the commercial space like it is now. So, I don't want to have to break through any more walls, right? I want that to kind of be just a generalization that my daughter can go into commercial real estate and there'll be, women-owned landlords in every, shopping center. And, there will be more opportunities for more brokers in the commercial sector. There really just needs to be that, as a common thread, right? Not just breaking through glass ceilings, right? I mean, I want, that to be, that's my end all goal, right? And I try to work with a lot of different brokers here at my office to try to, educate them on, this is how a broker should act, and because there's a lot of brokers in this market that, maybe are very successful, but I, try to set myself, differently than others. I want to be my clients' biggest advocates. I want to be their biggest cheerleaders, right? I want to support them. I'm not just going to do just this one deal, just, because I'm looking at the commission. I'm looking at it from a way bigger standpoint, right? I have this one group, this client that I touched on at my ceremony that owns a Filipino restaurant. And she, was telling me that I changed her life. And she refers me to all of her closest, friends and clients because I took the time to sit down with her and really educate her. And so you can't just look at it as one little deal, right? Because that one deal, it might have not been that big of a commission, but it helped open so many doors for me that I would have never even imagined. And it's been such a blessing in my life to have her because she is, one of the, most prominent like celebrity chef figure in Charleston with her husband. But, just having that relation based and having, that referral source is so huge. So if I could dream big, it would be to have, a lot more women in this industry, that's for sure.
I love that. I think about it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. And I think, Hannah, you embody doing it the right way for the right reasons, and that returns success in spades in so many facets of your life. And I think about why I started What Moves Her. And my daughter sits very close to the core of that as well. And I always say, one day I hope she looks at me and says, like, why did you have to? Yep. And I think that is, women like you, this platform, Lindsay, the whole team that helps bring this vision and this dream of mine to life is part of that big dream. And together we are marching it forward. It's incredible. Thank you.
There's always a moment when Sue and I are together, whether it's a prep meeting, a podcast, anything, there's always a moment where like I'll get goosebumps, a reminder in my heart of why this mission is so important. And hearing you speak about real estate as not transactional, but a moment in time for someone that is going to change their life is the why, right? It's your ability to recognize the impact of a deal on someone's life beyond just the finances, beyond just the transaction. And that was my moment in this. So thank you for giving me that moment. Hannah, you are an incredible force. You are changing not just your industry locally, but on a national scale with what Sue said, all of the things that you embody. You lead with integrity, intelligence, and perseverance. So we're so proud to have you as part of our community now, as a friend, as a colleague. We thank you for representing women in the industry so well, but just professionals in general. You are an incredible woman. We are forever in your corner cheering you on, and know that this is the first of many conversations that we'll have with you. So thank you so much for being with us today. We really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much.
We're going to keep rolling with our podcast. This was such a fun episode. Next time, we are going to be welcoming our new president of Compass, who is Netta Nawab. We're going to have her on as the first female leader of Compass. We have a lot of great questions in store for her. She's just coming off 100 days of travel and somehow only slept in a hotel room for 3. So make sure you catch that story. She's an incredible leader. If you are not subscribed for our podcast, go to whatmovesher.com and of course follow us on Instagram. Thank you for joining us and we'll be back soon.